Cheers! Do you want to see the definition of small but nice? Then let me introduce you to Eiyuden Chronicle Rising. This game is a relatively simple 2.5D action platformer that is promising a nice little story, a somewhat fast-paced combat, an interesting art style mix, and a town for us to build and upgrade. The reason I played this game is that my internet was dead for a few days, so I couldn't really work on anything else, and that's why I grabbed this little guy that I probably bought at some point in the past in a Steam sale, mostly due to its visuals and, well, probably the town building stuff. I honestly didn't expect much from it, but why I had a pretty good time with it anyway, and what the game's actual strength is something I want to tell you in this final review. A devastating earthquake revealed ruins under the mines of Nineveh. The news quickly spread far and wide and lured many wealth-seeking adventurers into the little town. One of them is CJ.
Welcome to San Andreas, I'm CJ from Grove.
No, stop. Not that CJ. CJ in this game is a 16-year-old scavenger on her search for treasure. In particular, a humongously large lens. Lenses are basically stones with magical traits in this world, but a big one in that case. They are usually found in old ruins, so one comes to another, and that's our target until we find out that Nineveh has many other problems we need to take care of as well. Among them are bandits that are attacking new adventurers and merchants, many buildings that need repair after the earthquake, and due to the influx of new faces, there are many heads without a roof over them or the necessary facilities to support their doings, which is leading to tensions in town. And because we have to prove ourselves to the young major anyway, before we even get the right to enter the mines in the first place, we take many of those problems on us while we make new friends and allies and help this town to flourish again. The story itself is rather basic, but characters and the general writing is lighthearted and sympathetic, featuring many funny and uplifting dialogues, especially between the main characters. But Rising also touches on some harder topics around the characters and their individual hardships, what only solidified my sympathies that I had with them. The story also concludes pretty well and teases the sequel 100 Heroes, which release in April 2024, and where players will probably see many of the pixel faces again that they have grown fond of in Rising. But within this little package of a game, I think its stories and characters are the strongest part of it, what definitely surprised me quite a lot, and it's probably the one main reason why I would recommend this game to people. The game features a really interesting art direction. It has 2D characters and backgrounds, but with 3D levels mixed in between them. That looks super weird at first, and I honestly needed a while to appreciate it. And it's also because the sprites for characters are as well pretty detailed for that kind of art style, with clearly defined and distinct designs, but also not really, seeing that many characters don't even have noses and many of the animations are all pretty stiff and basic. To be fair, once I got used to it, it grew on me quite a lot, and now I find it quite lovely and fitting for this game that often reminds me of Octopath Travelers, at least when it comes to its looks and with the overabundance of bloom in its levels, featuring forests, caves, and deep ancient ruins alongside, of course, the bustling streets of Nineveh. Sound-wise, there isn't too much to talk about. The music is nothing extraordinary, but it's fitting. The sounds are solid, but the conversations are not voiced, what is honestly a real freaking shame. I really would have liked to hear the back and forth of CJ and Garou in all of its glory, especially considering that many of those characters are indeed voiced in its big sequel, 100 Heroes. But apart from that little flaw, I think the presentation fits the game's beautiful simplicity pretty darn well. The game's core gameplay loop basically consists of gathering and fighting, upgrading and leveling so we can then unlock harder areas of the game to then gather new materials and fight harder monsters. Repeat. It's nothing special, but being so simple it almost had a meditative effect on me, despite of its repetitiveness over time, what is mostly caused by the plethora of very easy and uneventful side quests. These side quests are not really optional though, because we need to do some of them at least to upgrade our shops for better weapons, armor, useful items and accessories that give us little stat boosts, and to complete our stamp cards, which reward us with more people in our city and stronger combo attacks. Speaking of combat, the combat in this game starts simple but evolves over time, giving us longer chain attacks and additional moves that smooth out the flow and fluidity of it. In fights, the game wants us to switch between our 3 playable characters from time to time, what felt kinda odd at first, but you get used to it. Alternatively, there's also an option to simplify the combat even further, automating the character switching and link attacks for you. But even without using the auto mode, the game becomes really easy if you upgrade your gear whenever you can and use the link attacks at least somewhat consequently. Later the game introduces elemental affinities and resistances, which I'm not a big fan of in any game because it always feels like a lazy way to force players to abandon their preferred way of playing instead of expanding on it. Though it's not a big roadblock due to the general lack of difficulty in this game. But overall, I think it's a great game to snack away in shorter sessions over the week, and the main story is good enough to keep you engaged until you hit the end after plus minus 15 hours. And unless you want to hunt for achievements, you don't have to play further than that. Yes, the game offers you a so-called hard mode after you defeat the end boss, but you won't see anything new after this story-wise, and you are just going to repeat the repetitive gameplay loop over and over again, but now with enemies that have higher levels. Hooray. It didn't took that much time for me to 100%, but it felt really kind of like a waste of time, and it even tainted the very pleasing story ending for me a bit. Now, what else is there? I can keep that part really short. The game had no technical issues for me, it ran smooth as it could, it had no additional microtransactions or DLCs, and it is offline playable. And that all for just around $3 in a Steam sale or even as a key. That's it. That's nice. I like it. It probably was obvious that I did indeed like this game. Eiyuden Chronicle Rising felt a little bit like a gaming detox. Sometimes simpler is just better, and it's probably a good preload to 100 Heroes if you want to play that game afterwards. It feels like people cared about the characters, they built a nice little story of a city and its past that kept me interested enough to play through it, without major phases where it felt overly tedious, and well, the combat is fine, despite very easy, the graphics are fitting, and the progression mechanics are simple and yet satisfying for a brain like mine. And therefore I have to give this game 3 stars. It's inoffensive, it's nicely made, it's cheap, and the only reason why I can't give it 4 stars is because it doesn't do anything special and likely won't stick in my head for too long afterwards. That said, it is overall just a well-rounded package for some comfy evenings after work or a weekend. And I think it's even a good game to introduce young or even completely new players into gaming as a whole. So try it out if you liked anything you have seen or heard in this video, and even if you are unsure, the refund window of 2 hours is absolutely enough to make yourself a good first impression of it. And well, that's it. My final review of Eiyuden Chronicle Rising. As always, if the video was helpful, I appreciate a like. My name is TechTrack, but just call me Techie. Until next time, see ya.